The world's financial systems can be pretty exclusive. Billions of people around the world don't have access. It's the domain of the privileged few. Imagine what the world would look like if those billions who were on the outside could contribute and have access to the banking and financial services many of us take for granted. It was that idea, coupled with distributed ledger technology, or blockchain tech, which would be the impetus for two friends, Dominic Thomas and Robert de Wilder, to embark on a mission to solve this problem.
Dominic and I have known each other since university days. I was living in the student equivalent of kind of a slum off campus, and Dominic was brought on to be the apartment manager. So, and he really helped improve the condition of the place. And we had we had overlapping interests. So we were both into backpacking. And that is something that we did for almost 15 years. And we went to college in Southern California. So we had access to Yosemite, Kings Canyon, and then up in Northern California, quite a few kind of outdoors places. And I think that's really where we kind of bonded. Spending several weeks out in the woods with someone, you kind of get to know them. So we actually both ended up in the East Coast after college. And then we sort of fell out of touch for a little bit. We would communicate occasionally, but we were both busy. And it was one year when him and his brother-in-law were, and it surprised me, were way into Bitcoin mining. And I mean, I never remember Dominic is really into computers, but he was just telling me how he's tweaking the hardware, overclocking the specs. And at first I was a little bit jealous. I'm like, hey, that's my domain. But anyways, I had actually had an academic interest in blockchain and Bitcoin since probably around 2011. I wanted to get involved in it, but I needed someone more entrepreneurial to really kind of partner with me, and that was Dom.
Distributed ledger technology is a way to store data in a unique, decentralized format. These two friends started looking for a way to work together, utilizing this technology to create solutions to the financial inequality that nearly half the world's population experiences. Until recently, this endeavor would have been insurmountable. The current systems are simply too big and powerful. They built a team and embarked on a mission to do what had never been done before: bring fair and inclusive financial services to the world.
You know, it started out as a bank. We wanted to do something different that would have a level of unprecedented transparency, be really an online kind of challenger bank, and that would be accessible to anyone. You know, you could open an account from anywhere. We felt confident that we could do identity differently than anyone had done before by using a blockchain network. And in that process, we realized that we needed a comprehensive compliance infrastructure. Banking is very heavily regulated. We didn't expect that we'd be able to have something that was legal and lawful if we didn't follow those rules, but we felt that with this new technology, we could really build that infrastructure for a lot less. So we wouldn't need the capital-intensive fundraising that something like that would really require. And as we were engaging with the EOS community and the folks over there, that was the technology we chose to use. There was a lot of interest, and a lot of people were kind of connecting to that mission of access.
So moving from Ethereum to an EOS-based project was an exciting time. It was that time when EOS was being heard about, and it was solving all the problems that Ethereum had. And I downloaded it, I installed it, I confirmed it was real, and I wanted to be involved in it. It was definitely the right path for me because it solved all the headaches I was having with Ethereum. The people I was working with couldn't believe it, didn't want to believe it. They'd invested so much of their time, so much of their life learning Solidity, learning the ethos that went along with Ethereum, and trying to stay true to it. It was more than just programming to them. And even though EOS provided all the answers, they weren't willing to look at it. So as I was learning, I was spending a lot of time in the EOS chat room, in the developer chat room, and I was there daily asking questions as much as I could. And that's where I met Dom. And Dom showed me a video of him talking about WORBLI. And I thought, this is very interesting. This is completely contrary to everything I'd learned before, everything that I had even believed before. So it challenged me to see this from a very different point of view. This is going to be regulated, and we're going to have to grow up. And Dom was ahead of the curve chanting this, and I realized the opportunity, and I wanted to be part of WORBLI.
In some ways, I feel as if WORBLI stuck a lot closer to that sort of Satoshi vision that, the mythical being who started Bitcoin or came up with the initial Bitcoin white paper was, that everyone could be their own bank, that there could be sound money, that we could self-organize around, financial services and financial transacting, that we could have something that was truly global.
Decentralized finance is ultimately, if we think about how the financial system worked in its very earliest form, it was decentralized. There was no centralized anything. It was barter. It's the barter system ultimately that then moves towards some sort of fungible standard of way of converting everything back to a unit that could be converted between different things. And it's then only in the much more recent times, the last couple of 100 years, that we've then moved towards this concept of governments controlling the money supply, and more recently, and still really in the post World War II era, this idea of it being effectively not backed by anything meaningful at all. Instead, you just having effectively paper money or electronic money with no fixed supply, no scarcity, and effectively no controls around the monetary system the way that you might want. So if you look at decentralized finance, it's really a way of actually, I believe, returning back to a more harmonious structure for the financial system. It enables people to actually interact on a more direct basis again, but it actually harnesses all of the benefits, for example, of the electronic money era that we're familiar with now in terms of movement around and so on and so forth. And there's huge efficiencies gains that come from that too. So by cutting out the vast numbers of different middle actors that you have on a daily basis every time you utilize money, you can save the end users huge amounts of money, and that makes the whole act of carrying out commerce vastly cheaper. And then there's another particularly big benefit, which is this whole concept of the fact that a lot of people just do not have access to banking in the way that the average user has. So this concept of the unbanked is actually a huge proportion of the world population. The idea that actually anybody can participate in this global economy fully on a level playing field. So when you add all of those things up, it's really a compelling case for decentralized finance.
When it came to what we wanted to do with WORBLI, it was really around that access. And so we built out the network over the course of 2018, and we got a lot of support of block producers in the community, and started gathering people around the project, some really strong finance people.
My background being in financial services, I'd spent the best part of 20 years working with banks from around the world, spending huge amounts of their time trying to reconcile information between one another, and they're really struggling fundamentally to have a trusted golden source, to ensure that there was honesty amongst the different participants, and really struggling to comply with regulations, and that all of that stemmed from the very inefficient design of the systems. So what got me into the EOS and the blockchain space in the first place was looking for a platform that was capable of finally delivering on the promise of blockchain itself, which was to build decentralized applications. And then EOS itself was the obvious extension really of Ethereum, because it was a far better designed platform that could finally service the kind of decentralized finance future that I think we're all moving towards.
To create something capable of dismantling the centuries-old financial structures that exist today, You need more than just a good idea and a sound business plan. You need leadership that drives the vision, and you need funding to bring that vision to life. Raising capital in 2018 was nothing like 2017 in the blockchain space. In 2017, all you needed was an idea, a white paper of sorts, a website, and decent marketing. If you had those 4 things, there was a good chance you could raise millions. 2018 was different. Compliance mattered, and funding was harder to come by.
You know, we got it done, and in that process, I know that I personally learned a lot. I learned a lot about that industry, and it actually created a passion for me to also consider building a project around fundraising. You know, that I kept thinking the whole time, like, there has to be a better way. You know, I guess that's always been my personal mindset. When I've heard phrases growing up like, this is the way it's always been, or, you know, that's never jived with me. I've always thought like, well, you know, if human beings thought that, you know, we never would have advanced out of the Stone Age, right? Human progress is about people thinking there's a new and better way to do it. So that's what we set out to do. And it started with the infrastructure and the network. And I believe that, you know, that we did build it a better way. You know, we have a platform that users only have to KYC once, for example. And as we expect to see hundreds and eventually thousands of applications, you'll never have to do that again. You know, you can just go and, like, you know, you don't have to re-Google, right? You know, once you have a Google account and you're in the Android Play Store, then you sign up for apps, you know, and you use your Google account. And so that's how WORBLI operates.
And right now, all these pieces are coming together: legal, technical, marketing, compliance. They're in process right now. And we're building this platform that will make it a lot simpler for businesses to fundraise and to raise capital. It will also make it easier for VCs to know who to deploy capital with. This platform itself will use the blockchain in a number of ways. It creates a record of all stakeholder transactions. It helps us maintain strict compliance guidelines, and that's pretty easy actually with the WORBLI token protocol. Early stage liquidity is possible with the tokenization of assets. Data gathering and analysis is far more comprehensive, efficient. It comes down to trust, speed, data, and compliance. And I think compliance is the biggest. Maybe the most important if you want to stay in business. And this goes in a different direction than what a lot of other blockchains have done. This space in the past has been filled with projects that weren't the least bit interested in figuring out how to be compliant.
Seemed like there was a lot of talk and thought about creating our own nation states, isolated from the rest of the world, and that never really computed with me. I'm like, well, we are embedded within this real world. So I think WORBLI early on embraced compliance. It's a law of physics in the world we live in. We might as well embrace it. And then realizing how complicated compliance is. And it's not necessarily a hard problem. You can do KYC checks, AML checks. Those are all solved problems technically. The problem is the rules are changing from day to day. The rules of the game are different. And it's not even out of malevolence or anything. I just don't think governments know what they want to do.
We're also in the middle of this time period where global regulators are trying to get their heads around this, you know, and just a couple months ago now, I guess 2 or 3 months ago, there was a whole new set of FinCEN guidelines around digital assets. Fortunately for us, we had made the right bets already, so we didn't actually have to pivot too much around that. As I've said publicly in other channels, I believe we're the world's only compliant public blockchain.
I actually first met Dominic, the CEO of WORBLI, as early as January 2018, way before the network was launched. And he was explaining to the very early burgeoning community this idea of launching a separate chain that would be for decentralized finance. And he got a lot of early flack from that, from people who thought that everything should be on a single chain. But I was very much of the opinion from the outset that it made complete sense because of understanding. My background comes also in regulatory risk and compliance. And I could see just how much there was a benefit from embedding all of that at the base layer protocol and having those controls in place to enable institutional capital in particular to finally access the crypto blockchain area as well, with a degree of security.
After we built the network and we got everything running, it was about finding projects.
The projects I've been working on recently is Token Oro. So this is a gold-backed coin, and we've just finished the development of the new front end and back end with localization into Chinese. So we're poised and ready to enter the Chinese market.
WORBLI was brought to me by my friend Sean Anderson, and I was very skeptical about not WORBLI so much, but the whole space. I see some people that invested $1,000 when Bitcoin was at 5 cents, and they were made into wealthy people, and that's great. It's like winning the lottery. It's basically winning the lottery, but a lot of people were lottery winners in this case. And but where is this all going? I don't know. All I know is the financial system will continue to evolve. The world is full of chaos, getting more and more chaotic. So I think the cryptocurrencies are one of the attempts to bring at least economic order to the world currency system. WORBLI has, one, educated me about this space more than I had before, and has challenged me with possibly new models which don't exist within it, and we already came up with one.
Token Oro's model is very unique. There's nothing like it out there. Typically, when someone invests in the gold space, they either invest in the mining company, which means they buy shares in the company and get a dividend, or they buy gold, one or the other. What Token Oro has done, though, is combine both investment strategies into a single token. Like 50% of the token is represented by gold, stored in a vault. This creates a relatively stable floor value. The other 50% is based on the value of the mines themselves and the production of the company. So you end up with both. You get both gold and a share in the company. So it's basically a token with a stable floor and a flexible ceiling.
Over the past year, the WORBLI team has looked at hundreds of potential projects. Most of them were not ready to move forward. Some projects were underfunded, some lacked a development team, and some didn't have any kind of monetization model. At the same time, the WORBLI team also came across projects with bright futures, innovative applications, and businesses that wanted to find solutions and discover the possibilities. Businesses that wanted to make their home on the WORBLI blockchain.
In addition to Token Oro, we've got a lot of other really cool apps coming.
We have an AR video game called Tontines, which is a nice project allowing us to kind of get into the NFT space. We'll be helping them develop their token and all of that good stuff.
A lot of people have heard about and asked about Utility X. That's coming. Edna, which is a DNA project.
Edna is a way for people to monetize something that's theirs, their data. And we think that that's going to go a lot further. 23andMe is an example of their, you're paying $100 or whatever it is to get your data sequenced, and then they're turning around and making tens of thousands of dollars off of that. Yeah, you're checking a little box and you're giving them permission, but I don't think most people know what they're entering into. But with something like Edna, that'll be clear and people understand where that information's going. Plus, they can also use it for medical purposes down the road and lots of other things. We've done a deal recently with Mindset Academy, which is a great group that's been in the VC world for a long time, and they have a real passion for helping founders connect to investors. This was a project that I personally am very excited about, that I'm directly involved in. We have a project around sound money, collateralized debt, which we believe is a truly rational approach to money. And that's something that we're actively working on to get the first prototypes together, but it's really comprehensive monetary system with putting up some sort of collateral in order to actually create the tokens in the system. It could be anything from fiat to equity in your company. But the innovation is that it could be things like your labor. It could be art. It really encompasses anything and everything. And what we're doing is we're creating this sort of basket of assets that over time would create a monetary token, a payment token, a currency that is truly valued by the rational value of everything in it, right? There's no central authority like a Federal Reserve, say, in the United States, but it's also not dependent on one asset, which in and of itself can have its own fluctuations and its own challenges. And so this kind of encompasses the sort of fiat gateway promise that WORBLI had set out to do, to allow users to basically convert just about any asset into and out of digital assets, fiat assets, whatever you want, giving you that freedom to be making payments of any kind, taking out loans, accessing money in a way that's, again, entirely based on sound, rational financial principles. We've rolled out the first version of the WORBLI OAuth, which is our way of, as I alluded to, the kind of use Google to sign up for an account. This is how you'll be able to use your WORBLI account to sign up for any application. But not only on the WORBLI network, we want to grow it into a portable digital identity over time, where you'll be able to use it to sign up for a bank account. We're confident that our process is as good or better than what most banks are doing right now, especially for remote accounts. Recently, our focus has been on rolling out this compliance as a service product. We expect to sign up hundreds of fintech apps over the next, say, 12 to 18 months. Our goal is to sign up, as many as we can to this platform, because we believe it's going to give all of them a chance to come to market faster, save a lot of money. It could be a fintech app that doesn't have anything to do with or want anything to do with blockchain technology or distributed ledger technology. It could be a traditional bank that just wants to save a couple bucks on some of the existing compliance functions that they already have. That's a concern that we see in the research that's growing annually. Regulatory compliance is getting only more expensive at this time. We do feel that our product's probably 10% the cost of traditional compliance for a singular business at this time, or sort of a single fintech app if they had to recreate everything that we've already created. That's something that we're putting the sales strategy around and the final details of the product and looking to roll out really soon. In addition, we formed a couple of companies that will allow us to continue to do project work, business development work. Agenix is one of the companies that I'm involved in, and many people from the kind of current WORBLI team will be a part of. There's another company that's formed and that's doing business development and more of maybe a venture capital, and that's San Dimas. They've done deals, some with Agenix, some of their own. I know they have a bunch of projects they're working with right now, and they're getting very aggressive. Now's the time for us, At the end of the day, the innovation's going to come from allowing as many people as possible to take a shot at it, and allowing consumers to have as many options as possible so they can be the ultimate deciding factor, right? They're going to vote for the things that work best for them. We may think we have great ideas, but ultimately, if it's not the kind of thing that is going to make anybody's life better, it's probably not going to last. So we're excited to see where that takes us over the next, year or so from now.